Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, as you know that we have already started a series on political geography and today we have brought yet another lecture in the same series for you. In today's lecture, we will be talking about political geography and international relations. To discuss this topic, we have with us our subject expert, Dr. Krishnendra Meena. Dr. Meena is Assistant Professor in CPOD in School of International Studies, JNU. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir to our studios and request him to start the lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Today, as you can see, the topic is political geography and international relations. And it is only pertinent to understand that there are a lot of geographical elements when international relations are conducted. And we will highlight during the course of this lecture what are these specific geographic elements which are needed when to understand international relations, international politics. Also, we will be looking at key concepts in geography and political geography to understand how international relations are affected by them and how international relations affect these issues or these key concepts. But to initiate the discussion, let us understand again once again what is political geography in the first place. If we look at political geography in very simple terms, they are political studies carried out by geographers using the techniques and ideas associated with their special perspectives. So there are two specific aspects to this understanding of political geography, that these are political studies which are carried out by geographers, and they bring the techniques which they have learned in their geographical training, or the spatial perspective is important in understanding in a political geographical understanding of any issue of importance and any event of importance. We should also further look at a few definitions, and we should also try to sift out a few of the elements which we will be discussing in the coming minutes, in the coming hour, that within these definitions. So one of the very important geographers from the United States of America, Richard Hartshorne, in 1930s said that the political geography is the study of the variation of political phenomena from place to place, and that is in interconnection with variations in other features, such as features of the earth as the home of man. So for him, what is important is that the earth is the home of man, and there are variations in the political phenomena which exist there, and there is a linkage between these political phenomena. There is an interconnection. This is what should be studied in political geography. So in some ways it points out to the presence of uneven distribution of various kinds of resources in the system. A very important association, that is the Association of American Geographers, they argue that political geography is the study of the interaction of geographical area and political aspects, and that is again bringing in the very important element of geography, that is the earth's surface and the area is very important for them. So the spatial aspect still remains important here, along with the political aspects and the politics which is carried out upon this geographical area. Political geography, further, according to Kevin Cox, can be understood differently. He argues that it should be understood in terms of its key concepts, that is, and they are identified by him and other scholars in political geography as territory and the state. And also within this lecture, we will have a lot of focus on territory and the state. John Agnew, another prominent political geographer, argues or says that political geography is the study of how politics is informed by geography. So the geographical information, how it is utilized by political thinkers, by political scientists, by politicians themselves, is of deep importance, or is of high significance to Professor John Agnew. Joe Painter brings this definition into the realm of postmodern geography and says that it is a discourse or a body of knowledge that produces particular understandings about the world, characterized by internal debate, the evolutionary adoption of new ideas and dynamic boundaries. So, what is important for him is that there is a discourse, there is a discussion, there is a debate about different understandings of about the world, and this discourse develops new ideas, and there is an adoption of these new ideas to bring about what we understand by political geography. So, this is what political geography is. This is just to familiarize with you with the key with the subfield of political geography, and then we will come to how the important concepts in political geography and how they individually interact with international relations, or how international relations are conducted upon the basis of these key concepts. Geography and international relations interact at these 5 important concepts, 5 key concepts, that is, and these are geographical concepts because we are looking at it from a geographical standpoint. We will look at 4 important concepts in political geography, that is space. Space, as we have already had a lecture on space, but I'll again try to make sense of what space is. Space has been understood by various scholars differently in various measures. There have been a lot of distinctions, but the most accepted definitions are by David Harvey, who argues that there are 3 kinds of spaces. That is absolute spaces, that come under the Euclidean geometrical spaces, or the geometrical spaces which can be understood in their length, breadth, width, height. So, they have measurable attributes. Then there is relational space. Spaces are in that context understood to be understood in relation to other spaces. And finally, relative space, which is the space in which everyday lives or the interaction with the immediate space of people is more prominent. Similarly, Henry Lefebvre on similar lines argued for a definition of space. And space is also important to understand international relations, because in international relations our space functions as the basic playground to conduct international relations, as the background, the surface area over which international relations are conducted is the space, be it the global space or be it the space outside of the realm of atmosphere or the atmospheric space, or be it the oceans or the landmass which is there on the globe, on the Earth's surface. Then we have places which can be identified on the basis of their specific particular specialities, and that because there are so many places in the international system that we have, and they are distributed unevenly with different kinds of resources around the planet, and that's why we have these international relations, or the conduct of international relations happens because we have a lot of places existing on the planet, and they can be identified with their specific characteristics or particularities. Then another important concept in geography or political geography is scale, within which we must understand that there are multiple scales to understand, to make sense of international relations, because in this more and more integrated world, interdependent world, we find that there are spaces there are places which do not exist only at the global level or at the national level, but there are 2 other levels also. So, the states or the nation states are not the only important actors or are the only scale through which international relations are conducted, but there are other scales as well. For example, local below the national scale or nation state scale, and above that is the regional scale, and the largest scale of course is the global scale on which international relations are conducted. So, there are multiple scales on which international relations are conducted, and that is, we will further elaborate upon the same when we come to the individual concept of scale. Environment deeply informs how international relations are conducted, and more so since the last 3 or 4 decades, since the realization by humankind that that environment is a very integral part for human survival. Humans, which have the largest population as a species on the planet, or which are the most intelligent species on the planet, have a deep imprint of environment, and they also influence an environment by their activities. So a lot of interaction with environment is initiated by humans, and on the other hand, environment also conditions how humans behave or how human activities are carried out in the international system. The last is a derivative of the last concept, concept which we will use in understanding geography and international relations is a derivative of space, place, scale and environment, all of them, but most importantly space and place. We will look at each of these concepts in detail as we move along this lecture. Let us begin with the concept of space. If we look at the space, we will find 3 important aspects which are very, very elementary to understand international relations. The global space, international space is characterized by, or there is a spread of a lot of nodes in the international system. These nodes, they most prominently, these nodes are the most prominent kind of nodes are the cities which we have in the international system. They began as small marketplaces. Later on, there were more intense interactions for them to develop into towns, and then they began to develop as settlements, and from there to large cities, large cities, and perhaps in some cases city-states, and they went on to become huge urban conurbations also in the longer run. And we see a lot of cities in the international system which function as nodes for various activities. For example, there are many industrial nodes in the international system. So we have a very important industrial belt in the northeast of the United States, one located within the United States, one located around the Great Lakes, one located in the California region. Then similarly in Europe, there are many industrial nodes, and around these nodes are the most important settlements which are located. That is, important cities, most prominent cities. There may be financial nodes also. For example, Frankfurt functions as a financial node for Europe. London used to serve that function before the emergence of, or before the coming of European Union as a region. So there are multiple examples of nodes which exist. There can be nodes at smaller scales also within a particular state. For example, there can be nodes which function nodes for a particular specific industry. For automobile industry, there may be nodes. There may be a company. There may be a particular city which is manufacturing, say, for example, only tires, and that functions as a node which supplies tires to various international automobile companies, and that city becomes a node in the larger production system of these automobiles. And within through these nodes, because these interactions within these nodes, between these nodes, among these nodes require connectivity, so there develops a network, and these networks are facilitated by roads, railways, oceanic sea lanes, and aircraft routes, air routes. All these also function as important parts of network. So there are, and a very important aspect of these networks is vehicles. Apart from the routes or the pathways which connect these nodes, there are a lot of vehicles which form a very important part of this transnational network in the international system. That's why we see a lot of within the networks, we also see a lot of pipelines. In the case of, you can see pipelines running across Europe, within Asia, South Asia, everywhere the distribution of oil and natural gas is done through pipelines. And it is very interesting to note that they also form a very important network through which these supplies are maintained, through which these energy supplies are maintained to various parts of the world. And the third important aspect, important element within the larger concept of space is territories. All states are bounded territories. So, nation states as we understand them today are bounded territories, and it is very important for us to understand that all nation states have a bounded territory, and they are mutually exclusive. So, and they are bounded and they can be distinguished with the use of these boundaries, and territory therefore forms an important marker in the international system, and nation states by far are the most important actors in the international system, and they have this very geographical aspect of being territorially bounded. Their geographical limits are defined by boundaries, borders, and that is the territory through that is the states operate on a particular surface area, through a particular surface area which is bounded by these boundaries or borders, and that is the territory from which these states operate. So, a very, very tangible aspect or material aspect of the international space is a world of states divided into territories. We will further look at the concept of territory when towards the later part of our lecture. Let us now move on to the next important concept to understand international relations through a geographical lens, that is place. We will start with we should also understand that place making, remaking and sometimes demaking is central to human activity. So, it is through human activity that places are made, remade, and sometimes they are also destroyed or they are demade. They are actually gradually moved out of, or they decline because of human activities only. And one such example is one can understand the same through the example of regions, and regions are the most important places in the international system currently. So, you have regions at the level of the domestic, also at the level of the subnational you will find a lot of regions. For example, within the context of India you will find regions like Bundelkhand, Jharkhand, or the Deccan Plateau is a region, a physical region. You will find there are some industrial regions also. So, the Chota Nagpur Plateau, though it is a physical region also, but it is also industrial region. So, within at the level of the subnational also you will find we can find a lot of regions, but these places and as do the regions are characterized not only by how they look, not only by their physical appearance or not only by their physical geographical characteristics, but also by the people who occupy them. So, an important aspect within these regions is humans, and who vary in some of their characteristics. So, these regions become specific regions because they vary in some of their characteristics in relation to other regions, and they often vary substantially in very, very complex ways. So, though it is at a larger from a larger perspective, from a larger scale one can identify regions, but as we move to the micro level it is very difficult to understand, or it is very difficult to regionalize in geography. And further, regions are also characterized, there is a deep imprint of human activities on regions, that is to say that regions are characterized by ways in which local people organize their lives. So, how people or how humans interact with their immediate surroundings, interact with their immediate environment has a deep imprint on what kind of regions are formed. And this has also the focus in this is the environment, because environment also provides resources on which to act, and the humans act on these resources, and they therefore create very specific kind of regions on the basis of this interaction with these resources provided by the environment. and these resources are realized from the physical landscape to create different kinds of regions. One can identify places through different parameters, through different indicators. There can be linguistic regions, there can be regions which are formed on religious lines, there are regions which are formed on household and family structures, there are regions which are formed on land ownership arrangements, there are regions which are formed on arts, music, and so we can identify within the context of India, we can look at regions which are based on language. So most of the states which we have in our country are linguistic regions, most of the provinces, that is. There is a larger level at regionalization on the basis of language, in which a lot of languages are identified. For example, Indo-European languages are found over a certain part of the world, and they can be marked on the map. Similarly, Germanic languages are a group of languages which are spoken in particular parts of the world, and they can be easily identified. Religion also marks a very defining feature to understand place. Most of the places which we inhabit are actually segregated on the basis of religion, not only nationally but also internationally. And one such there are many examples where religious identities straddle the boundaries of states or nation states, and then they cause a lot of problems owing to this issue. Household and family structures can also become the basis for formation of a particular region. Land ownership arrangements are also one kind of one can arrive at regionalizations through that, and all of them have an imprint on the international scene. Arts, music, now there is an increasing fusion of music in the international system, or at the international music scenario. People interact, a lot of musicians from different parts of the world interact and create new fusion music. There is an internationality to music itself. So there are international relations conducted on the basis of culture also. So there are cultural regions based on language, religion, arts, music. We will from there we can move, and on the basis of these identifying cultural traits, international relations are conducted. We will move to the next concept within our understanding, that is the concept of scale. In common usage, we use the term scale as cartographic scale, that is the geographic scale, in which we use the terms such as large scale maps, small scale maps to denote different kinds of areas which denote a small section of the land, or sometimes they may denote a huge or the entire globe, or a huge part of the globe. But within our context, they also are very important to understand international relations, the cartographic scale also, because most of the maps, as they are representations of reality on the ground, they also depict a lot of nation states onto them, and which is very, very interesting to understand. Then we have non-cartographic scale, which is also important to understand, and one such classification of scales is done by a very prominent geographer, Peter Taylor, who argues that there are, in terms of economy or political economy, there are three kinds of scale. First is the scale of experience, that is the scale of local, and that is the scale of immediate experience, because we experience things immediately which are immediately around us, or which surround us. The immediate environment is more legible to us than many other things. Then we have the scale of reality, and this he argues that with increasing globalization, global is the scale of reality in terms of economic transactions which happen in the international system. Most of the economic transactions which take place have a global imprint. That's why the geographical scale of globe is the scale of reality. and the scale of justification is the national scale. That's what he argues, and it is the scale of justification because states justify their rules and regulations to keep certain elements, certain goods and people out of their territory, and to actually bring in more and more aspect from the international system. And with that, we will close our discussion for now, and we will come back in a short while. Thank you. We will carry on our discussion on scale with further elaboration on the geographical scales which are employed at the international in international relations. That is, first is the global scale, and this is most suitably also and most prominently used while talking about environmental issues, because now, as we understand now, most of the environmental problems are global in nature. So what one problem which is maybe local in nature but also has global implications, and that's why there are global solutions needed, and that's why there are a lot of conferences and lot of organizations which deal with issues which are global in nature, and most prominent among them these days or in the contemporary scenario is the environmental issues. There are issues of climate change, there are many other global issues. For example, there is this issue of nuclear proliferation which can threaten the whole globe. So there are global solutions needed for that, and there can be many other examples, but we will move on to the regional scale, that is the scale above the nation state or above the national scale. One easily can identify a lot of supranational organizations in the international system, and the epitome of all of them is European Union, within which there are no boundaries. It is a borderless union, borderless region comprising a lot of states, 27 states wherein there is no visa required to travel. So the Schengen region is a scale in which, but there are many other supranational organizations like ASEAN, like NAFTA, which are moving towards more and more integration. The regional organizations are the order of the day. Within the global setup, global economic setup, there are many more other organizations which are regional in nature have come to play a very, very important role. Be it they may be organizations which only relate to only economy. They may be economic organizations, but there are many other organizations also which have other bases. There are security related organizations also in the international system, which are at the level of the supranational, or which do not follow the scale of the nation, but there are nation states which are part to that, and international relations are conducted within these regional organizations also. Then at the national scale, we all understand that most of the international relations are conducted by states or nation states, because there is a lot of conflation in the literature as well as in our usage of the terms national and nation and nation states. Though we have had an earlier lecture on nation and nation states, but we need to understand that these are two different issues. But at the national scale, the states or nation states still remain the most important actors in the international system, and they are the ones primary actors which conduct international relations. That's why it is important to understand the national scale very important, very deeply to make sense of what these states want to say when they want to, what these states want to indicate when they want to project their national viewpoints. Then a level below another geographical scale is that of the local, which most of the times is at the level of below the level of the nation, or which exists within the national level, or which exists at the domestic level. But now in this integrated world, in this liberalized world, or most importantly of the world of globalization, one can find that local events also have very huge impacts at the international level or at the global level. Therefore, there is a lot of politics conducted, or politics which happens over local events also. International relations are also conducted over local events or local phenomena. We will move on to the concept of environment, which is again very central to geography, and which also informs international relations in very deep terms, in very significant way. Environment is the foundation. Let us begin with let us begin to understand what environment is in the first place. It is the foundation on which places are built and spaces organized. Most of the places are built and spaces are organized on the basis of environment, because human activity derives a lot from their immediate environment, from their physical landscape, and similarly spaces are organized on the basis of what the environment provides to the observer, what the environment provides to the humans or the individuals. So the spatial structures come about on the basis of environment. So the environment is a basic, it forms the basis for the spaces to be organized. And there are many meanings for environment in everyday usage. For example, the immediate surroundings may be called environment in common parlance. But for us here, it will refer to the Earth's surface, subsurface and atmosphere, which together provide the basis for all life. And it is very geographical in nature. The Earth's surface is a very important aspect of geographers' research and study. Geographers study the Earth's surface, they study the subsurface, they study atmosphere, and all of them provide the basis for life. Therefore, they become a very important aspect of relations, and most importantly international relations, because the capacities to draw from the Earth's surface and subsurface and atmosphere are different for different actors on the planet, on the Earth's surface, on the planet, on the global scale. So international relations have an impact of these differences of availability of resources in the international system. So the environment, either directly or indirectly, is the sole source of all resources, vegetable, animal and mineral, which are deployed by individuals not only to sustain their everyday lives, but also to provide raw materials transformed into wide range of consumption items, and they are priced within contemporary societies, these items. So environment provides all the resources for the production of all kinds of consumption items in the contemporary society, and also to sustain themselves, individuals and humans need environment very dearly. Therefore, there is a lot of international politics, there is a lot of politics which goes on the issues of environment in the international system. Also because the distribution of resources in the international system is uneven, and that is a very important factor of environment, very important dimension of environment, that resources in the international system are unevenly distributed, and therefore there is a politics to attain them, to gain them, to obtain these resources, and to utilize these resources as to utilize these resources and to gain from them. That is what environment, and that's where the politics for resources starts. And one example, a very prominent example, is that of the international competition for resources, that is oil. Energy resources are coveted internationally, and so much so that they lead many states to conflicts, many nation states to conflicts. Many scholars argue that the conflict in the Arab world, Arab countries, or in West Asia is partly due to the presence of mineral oil there, or presence of hydrocarbons in the region. And that's so environment can cause conflict. There have been other examples of environmental conflict where en masse migrations have taken place because of some climate change, because of for example in Africa various grasslands have been destroyed, or they have been overutilized, and there have been no grasslands to graze for the cattle, and so people have to move to different locations, causing strife and conflict. So environment has a deep imprint on how international relations are conducted and how international politics is conducted, and the most of this imprint of environment comes to international relations through the uneven distribution of resources that is there in the international system or on the Earth's surface. Furthermore, one can understand that environmental issues, there is a lot of politics on environmental issues which is going on currently also in the international system. But we should also understand that till the 1970s, or environmental issues were not considered serious enough before the 70s, because there was less environmental awareness in this internationally as well as with the human beings. And since 1990s, and since the onset of this recent phase of globalization, global environmental problems have been identified with their extensiveness, that is the geographical reach of environments is very large. They are expansive in nature. They cover a lot of area on the Earth's surface. So one environmental problem like the ozone hole which happened at Antarctica, above the atmosphere in Antarctica, had the impacts of that were felt internationally. So the geographical reach of environmental problems is understood more clearly now in this era of globalization, because environmental problems are understood to be more and more global in nature. Similarly, it is also understood that environmental problems, as we understand them now, are more intense than previously thought. So they are more deeper than understood earlier. Earlier understanding was more simplistic, in the sense that there is a lot of pollution, there is a pollution in rivers, pollution in air, and soil pollution. But now increasing research and advancements in research have led us to understand or have led us to believe firmly that these problems are more deeper in nature. They affect every aspect of our life, and not only human life but animal life also. And these problems are gradually attaining serious proportions, and their nature is becoming very, very serious as we move along, as time passes. And most of them are artificially generated. All these problems are artificially generated. Then the speed of these problems or the velocity of these problems is also very, very swift, very fast. The speed of development and spread of these problems cannot be undermined, cannot be understated, because at the rate of at the rate of which human development is progressing or industrialization is progressing in the international system, economic growth is progressing, it has deep environmental impact, and it is a very fast rate at which the humans are damaging environment, and the spread also is very swift. So not only the human economic growth is devastating the environment, but the spread of this environmental problems is also very fast. And that's why there is a lot of international politics. The international relations have a deep are gaining more and more deep imprints of environmental issues. So there was a lot of euphoria recently when the climate a climate deal was reached in the Conference of Parties in the recently held COP21 Conference of Parties 21 in Paris. And there are a lot of international organizations which work to mitigate the effects of environmental damage on the Earth's surface, and that's why there is a lot of politics. Not only the states are important actors in this environmental issue, on the issue of environment and the related debates and discussions, but a lot of non-state organizations also play a very important role in international relations, leading to the mitigation of problems related to environment. And one must also understand that environmental problems are can be understood at two geographical scales. The first is the global or the wider international scale, wherein the best example for that is the greenhouse warming. So we understand that the whole globe will be affected and will be warmed by temperature rise because of the release of a few greenhouse gases, which cause which do not allow the heat of the earth to escape from atmosphere. So there is a warming of the earth's surface from that, due to that, and that happens at the global level, and greenhouse warming is one such example of global environmental problem. But these global environmental problems have local effects also. So if temperatures rise owing to greenhouse warming or global warming, the first or the most damaging results will be witnessed in small island nation states or the coastal areas, where some parts of the earth may be submerged. Then you have the local environmental problems at the local level, local scale, which have larger transnational impacts. Some scholars have also called them leaky environmental problems, and so one example is loss of biodiversity. So for example, if resources of a particular forests are depleted, tropical forests are depleted very fast or depleted at an accelerating rate, then there will be loss of biodiversity, which will lead to an impact on the many countries which depend on the resources from this biodiverse forest. Or similar problems can be witnessed when these biodiversity areas are lying at the boundaries of two states, at a border of two states. We have a very important example within South Asia where the Sundarban mangroves or the Sundarban Delta is one biodiversity hotspot, and when there is a loss of biodiversity in Sundarban mangrove, it has an impact not only on India but also in Bangladesh. Furthermore, environment, the sea level rise which is being witnessed in Sundarbans also has an impact on humans, leading to migration of people, because more and more area is submerged under saline water, sea water, which leads to migration of people, which leads to loss of livelihoods and leads to migration of people to India. And these problems become transnational in nature, and that's where international relations have to be conducted to mitigate these issues, mitigate these problems. In our lecture, the last concept which we wanted to underline or which we wanted to understand is territory. And if we want to understand territory, simply would mean that it is a bounded social space that inscribes a certain sort of meaning onto defined segments of the material world. For international relations, it has a deep implication because these territories are nation states. The whole world is divided into a mosaic of states, in a patchwork of states which are defined by territorial boundaries, which are defined by their respective territories. And this concept of territory marks a differentiation between an inside and outside. So what lies within this geographical territory of a particular state is inside, and what exists beyond the boundaries of this territorial state, geographic territory of this state, is outside. So this polarity of inside and outside, this creation of self and otherness, comes from the geographical marker of territory. And that's an international, most of the international relations are framed by the presence of these territorial markers called boundaries, by the presence of these territories. And the basic of territory then are fairly straightforward. A space, that is geographical space, a line, that is a border or boundary demarcating that particular space, some meaning which is actually ascribed to the people who are living within that country. That meaning may be nation, that can be an imagined community, that can be an identity related to this state. There can be citizenship and some state of affairs that has to be there to provide this meaning to this territory. Let us further look at how the concept of territory informs international relations. A very important scholar, Professor John Agnew, who argues that international relations are beset by three very important geographical assumptions, and without these geographical assumptions, international relations cannot be understood properly. And there has been a very less focus on these three aspects, these three geographical assumptions of international relations. The first is that state territories have been reified as set or fixed units of sovereign space. So it is understood in the international system, while conducting international relations, while conducting research on international relations or international studies, it is understood that states are fixed units of sovereign space. But is that the case? This understanding of the state, this territorial understanding of states, tends to decontextualize or tends to move the state away from its historical context. So when the states interact in the international scenario, they are interacting as one particular identity, say for example India, Russia, China, United States, South Africa, Ghana or Germany, but the historical context is not clearly outlined while studying them. That remains, the treatment of this particular state territory is that of fixed units of sovereign space, but a lot of history has gone on into the making of that particular identity of that particular state that is not clearly outlined. The second assumption of international relations is that the use of domestic, foreign and national international polarities has served to obscure the interaction between processes operating at different scales. So, most of the times international relations are to be understood as relations between different states. So, there are these polarities of or binaries which come about of domestic, foreign, national, international, inside, outside, us, them, self, other, all of them, near, abroad, all these binaries come about because we treat the state as the most important actor in international relations, and the territory and the state is identified with this territory, and these distinctions, these markers come because states are treated as territorial states. But here John Agnew argues that there are various other scales which have been overlooked. Now in this very interdependent, very interactive world, we find that a lot of cities also interact beyond or they interact without the interference of the states. So, you will find a lot of sister cities in the international system. So, a city like Ahmedabad may have sister cities in Germany. Say for example, Dortmund is a very important, or Düsseldorf is a sister city of Ahmedabad, and New Delhi has a sister city in United States or in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So, there are sister cities also interact at different scale beyond the state or within the purview of the state, but they are interacting. There is another scale that is of provinces acting or interacting at their own level. So, for an Indian province like say Gujarat may be interacting with a province in say Germany called Northwest Rhineland or North Rhine-Westphalia or Lower Saxony or Bavaria. There may be some state of United States which is interacting with a state in India. So, such interactions also have become more common in the international system. The last assumption is that the territorial state has been viewed as existing prior to and as a container of society. So, states have been treated as containers of different societies, whereas, and that is a problematic assumption because states have not been prior to societies, but it is the other way around. Societies have formed these states, and that is where these markers have to be understood. That has to be understood very clearly while understanding international relations. So, societies have also to be understood more seriously. Now, we will move to a major distinction within political geography, and that has an impact on, that has a very significant import on international relations also. We should look at the differentiation or the difference between political geography and geopolitics. We most of the time conflate political geography as conducting international relations, but there is a major difference. Political geography it can be at any scale, and first of all it is the larger canvas for international relations. But on the other hand, political geography is the larger field within which the subfield of geopolitics is located, and political geography has its most important characteristic is distribution. The study of distribution is the most important element in political geography, whereas in geopolitics location is the most important aspect to study. So, geopolitics is more about strategizing on the basis of locations, on the basis of the location of a particular country in its immediate neighborhood, or a particular state in its larger region, or at the larger global scale. States also devise their strategies, geopolitical strategies, on the basis of their location, and that's and on the basis of that also conduct their international relations. There is another very important distinction between political geography and geopolitics, that is that political geography takes cognizance of all scales, or it understands events at all scales. In the and we already have looked at various scales in today's lecture, be it local, regional, national or global. All scales are studied in political geography, whereas the focus, the subject matter of geopolitics is more and more international or global. So, if you look at a lot of geopolitical concepts or geopolitical theories which have been there in the traditional geopolitical realm, have been global or international in nature. We can look at the examples from Hartland, from Nicholas C. Spykman's Rimland, or air power theories from D. Seversky, or the German geopolitik. Most of these theoretical understandings were international in nature, be it the pan regions of Karl Haushofer, they are all international in nature, or they were all global, global, all encompassing in terms of the larger globe. Even in the current context, the United States military command system has a global system, or it has a global, and that is why it is considered as a geopolitical command. It has the commands are divided on the basis of geography, and there is a deep international or global imprint on those on that command system. All naval doctrines, all air doctrines for different militaries have this geopolitical imprint also, because they deal with international matters, interstate matters. That is why geopolitics is more about international relations, and political geography can be understood at all the scales. With those words, we will finish today's lecture. Thank you very much.
On that note, I would like to thank you for this very enriching discussion, and thank you dear friends for watching our show. Friends, it has been our continuous effort to bring very informative and knowledgeable lectures for you to that end we have been trying our best. On that note, thank you dear friends for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.